So one of the other things that we've seen is kind of certain challenges for clients that have been really exacerbated by COVID. So individuals who are struggling with their mental health, their physical health, anxiety, stress, and then of course the economic stress, further pressure has been put down on each of those individuals by COVID. And so Phoebe, can you say a bit more about that, maybe specifically around like housing stability? I know a lot of people have seen and asked questions about the eviction moratorium and that kind of thing. Can you kind of speak to that and how that plays in here?
Sure. Yeah, our biggest goal of all of our housing programs is helping folks keep that roof over their heads so that they don't go back out on the street. So, the work to do that is difficult because there's lots of things that are going on in our clients' lives that they brought in, I guess, when they were first housed that we have to work through. And so, like Alexis said, many of those things were exacerbated with COVID hitting. So one of the things we saw was, which is relatable to many of us in the community, is folks were experiencing job instability or fear that they would lose their jobs or actually losing their jobs, losing their income, and then having trouble paying their rent. And then also for folks who did have some income and it wasn't disrupted during this time, what we heard is that a lot of clients were spending their money on things that they, like resources that were previously supplemented by other organizations, other social services, but that had temporarily been shut down because of COVID. So that money went to kind of those needs, and then folks got behind on rent. So yeah, Alexis alluded to the eviction moratorium. Very quickly, our staff tried to wrap our heads around, okay, what's going on federally, what's going on locally. So federally, y'all have probably heard of the CARES Act, right? I think it's impacted each of us in some way. So the CARES Act was passed, I believe, in late March. And so one of the provisions it allowed for is that folks who are living in government subsidized housing or in apartments that had federally backed mortgages, which is actually all of our clients. There was a 120-day moratorium on landlords being able to evict them due to late payment of rent, as well as taking off any late fees that folks would have to pay during this period. So it lasts till about, I think, July 24th is the date. And then on top of that, in Harris County in Houston, there was a moratorium on all evictions for a little while, right? No matter what the reason was, even if somebody's housing wasn't subsidized by the federal government. So that's lifted. And so, that may impact some of our clients who could be evicted due to reasons other than late rent payment. Alexis, I could talk a little bit more about the housing piece, or I could talk about some of the other challenges.
Maybe talk about some of the other challenges a little bit, just in the interest of time.
Sure. So Alexis had also alluded a little bit to mental health, substance use challenges. For many of us, and then also you've probably heard on the news, you may have experienced it for yourself, just the level of anxiety symptoms, right, and depressive symptoms across our society, across many nations, have increased during this pandemic because it's truly a global crisis. And so for our clients, a disproportionate number of them already had pre-existing mental health conditions is now further exacerbated during COVID. And these are things we could probably resonate with, right? The loneliness of having to isolate and self-quarantine, the boredom, right? I was trying to imagine this for myself to better empathize the other day, but, imagine having no Netflix, no internet, maybe no TV, very little access to talk to people in your lives, no, maybe no job at the moment to occupy your time. And just imagine how you would react. I imagine how I would react, and I would probably not be doing well. So a lot of our clients, because they started off with less resources and often less social connection in the first place, this is a rough time. So the connection to our staff have been even more important. And so, yeah, I mean, just this morning I was, sitting 6 feet away with my mask on and her mask on with a staff member, and we were talking about the kinds of conversations clients were having. And a lot of folks have been asking, what do I do with my time? What do I do with this boredom? How do I not go back to some of the negative habits that that I used to, engage in? Because this period is when a lot of those triggers have been coming up. So that's been a lot of our work. That's been a lot of our conversation with clients. We've, one of our housing sites, actually before COVID, they were running a weekly recovery group for folks who are recovering from substance use disorders. And, just I think a few weeks ago, I was getting ready to revisit the conversation with that team about, figuring out how we can restart that group. When I started talking to them, I heard that actually one of the staff members had already taken it upon herself to do that. So she had given the clients a call-in number and said, all right, every Friday, weekly, call into this number and we will talk and we'll keep our group going. So she had already been doing that for 2 or 3 weeks, before I reached out with that conversation. At another housing site, they're planning to start a new group called, I think they're calling it Staying Connected During COVID. So part of it too is just the realization, the connection with one case manager or maybe 2 staff members may not be enough. And so they're trying to do what they can to connect our clients to each other. Just like we need connection, right? Other folks who are going through the same thing. So it's tough. I want to just kind of end what I'm saying with one quick story, which is that at the beginning of this pandemic, our staff were worried, right, about our clients. One staff member came to me and she said, I had this conversation with a client and he was watching the news and watching everybody like going out to buy toilet paper and freaking out. And he said, but you know what? I've been without toilet paper so many times. I know what to do. I know what to do with less. So the staff member and I were just reflecting on, that's a good reminder that a lot of our clients are resilient. There's things they can teach us about managing this crisis. So, even though there is a vast need and it's real, what our hope is that through collaborations, through community members like you all, we're not just working to fill a gap, to address a need, but we're trying to unlock and unleash the potential that's already there in our clients and helping them, achieve that potential and continue transforming their lives.